to Back to the Future. My name's Adam.
And I'm James, and today for this Halloween special we are going to look at 3 films. We're going to look at Nightmare on Elm Street from 1984, The Texas Chainsaw, the 2013 version, and finally to end on the masterpiece that is Green Room. So without further ado, let's get started.
I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy.
No one will survive. Director of The Hills Have Eyes and Last House on the Left, a new masterpiece in fantasy terror, Nightmare on Elm Street.
So for Nightmare on Elm Street, in this film people are beginning to die within their dreams as ex-child serial killer Fred Krueger is travelling into the dreams of teenagers and killing them off one by one. It is up to our protagonist to stay awake and avoid becoming Krueger's latest victim, also whilst figuring out how to kill him. So Adam, do you want to take it away?
Of course. So James, do you want to hazard a guess at what the Rotten Tomatoes critic score of this film might be?
So it's Nightmare on Elm Street. It's a classic. We all know that. It's one of my favourite films. Just off the bat there. But critic, I would say it's around the 80%. It's probably no less or no more than the 80s. I would say.
Okay. Interesting.
I'd say. That makes me think I've got it wrong. It's like what 82% for the critics.
Is that your final answer?
Yeah, 82%.
94.
Whoa! Fair enough.
That's higher than you thought, innit?
Yeah,
higher than you thought.
Then for audience, I think audience will be... if the critics was 94, the audience probably a bit 89 for the audience.
Okay, close. 83% for the audience score.
Okay, so all I had to do was swap the two. It would have been better.
You were that close. So the critics' consensus on Rotten Tomatoes reads, Wes Craven's intelligent premise, combined with the horrifying visual appearance of Freddy Krueger, still causes nightmares to this day. I'd say that's, as someone who's just watched the film for the first time, that is a pretty justified synopsis. It's still really good, in my opinion.
Well, I saw the 2010 one before I saw the 1984 one. And even though the 2010 with higher technology capabilities, the one from the 80s is so much scarier.
Why do you think that is?
It's because I think it's just because of the use of practical effects. I think practical effects will be scarier than visual effects any day of the week. I was reading, and it took 3 hours to put the makeup on.
3 hours.
But not just that. But the original plan, the original look for Freddy Krueger was much worse. He was going to have teeth going through his skin, like his bottom teeth were going to go through his skin, and he was going to pus and all this kind of thing. And the makeup artist was like, "Wes,
nah, mate,
we can't do this."
Nah.
One, because he wouldn't blend in very well. Like you couldn't do that on a human, and a puppet just wouldn't work. So Wes Craven quite begrudgingly had to dial it down to get the Freddy Krueger we know today.
That's the thing, because one of the things that really struck me is that the prosthetic on him is very concise in terms of he can still move around very easily, and that's whole part of his character, I think, is the way he chases after his victims.
that little run he does.
Like
Yeah, no, I love it. I honestly do. I think that's where the film stands out. I think it's a slasher film, so the writing isn't, citizen... Yeah,
for a slasher though, it's very good writing. Like it is good.
It is.
It's a well-written film.
But I mean, its strengths are very much in the practical use. So to just pick out some iconic scenes when he's going through the ceiling.
Yes. Oh my god.
Yes.
It's so simple that though. It's so simple in that it looks like all they did is put some thin plastic sheeting over the set and just get like probably a puppet just going in on it.
And the bathtub.
Oh, the bathtub made my skin crawl.
Yeah, that's quite a thing. It was it was a bathtub prop set in the middle of a swimming pool.
Oh, that's very clever.
Yeah, that's what I read. But also the first death where she's being taken up to the wall.
How do they do that?
It's a rotating set. It's an Inception rotating set.
The old trick, innit?
Yeah, it's a fixed camera with a rotating set.
Wow.
Yeah. And the last practical effect that I want to touch upon is Glenn's death, when he falls into the bed and then...
I'd seen that, now think about it, I'd seen that image before, but not in the context of the film. And when that happens, it's like the kills are kind of being things have been escalating for a bit, you know? And that's just the massive release of blood pressure from hell, it would seem.
Yeah, well, I did a bit of reading around this, and in the entire shooting of the film, if you think up to then, blood was used, but not too much, right?
Not a lot, no.
Anyway, so in total, over 500 gallons of blood was used in the filming.
Wow!
So if you think how much was just used in that, just then, And
talking of practical effects, like my favourite shot in the whole film, it's a very small thing, but it's the shot where Freddy is tormenting his first victim out in the alleyway, and he goes, "Look at this," and cuts into his side with all the goop and maggots, and I was just like, "What?"
Yes.
That was like
visually.
I was visually and physically shocked by that, because I was kind of like,
I remember seeing your reaction, and you were like, "Ooh."
Goop and maggots.
Like,
you can't get any better than that, or worse.
So that being said about practical effects, when it comes to acting, because it was quite a young cast, I think the majority of the cast were like 20, 21, 22 years old.
They did the job. They did their jobs very well. I mean, Johnny Depp in that is the one sort of notable member of the younger members of the cast who's actually gone on to do stuff and be notable afterwards. I mean, his performance is fine. All the performances I say are fine. They're not cringeworthy like in many horror films. They just get the job done. Final Girl, on the other hand, Nancy?
I'd say Nancy, Nancy.
Yeah, Nancy. Her actress was very good, because she basically has to carry the whole film. Because it's one of those instances where Freddy is barely in the film. He turns up, he's maybe got 5-10 minutes screen time.
It's under 7 minutes. But as we were saying earlier in this conversation, the plot, the script, you said it's quite good for a horror film.
Yeah, like, that's the thing with... one of the things I think that's quite unique about horror is that it's probably changed the least out of most of the genres of film, in terms of you still have horror films whose only aim is to ape or recreate films from 40 years ago, like Nightmare, for instance, in terms of low budget horror films. And yeah, it's just written very well. The dialogue doesn't try to overstep itself. It tells the story. It lends itself to enough development of the characters where it need be.
It's very corny 80s, like that effect at the end, you know, when he reaches out for her and then he just fades away.
Oh, I was gonna bring that up. Yeah, just the dummy is just...
Oh, I wasn't thinking...
It's both terrible and wonderful
I wasn't talking
at the
about
same
the model,
time.
but that's a very good point as well. When the mum gets dragged through there. No, I meant when she says that she doesn't believe in him, and he goes after her, and then he just like fades away in sort of a window movie maker transition.
Oh right, yeah. But it's fine because it's an 80s film. You know, there's only so much they could do.
They can get away with stuff like that, but I think the research of the film was incredible. So Wes Craven read an article on this. I don't know the full story behind it, but it was okay. So it's called Asian Nightmare Death Syndrome, which is completely unexplained, and it's a disorder found in Southeast Asia, particularly Thailand, Japan, the Philippines, and Cambodia.
Wow!
And it basically causes sudden cardiac death during sleep. Completely unexplained. No one knows how it works or how it happened. But Wes Craven clearly thought that'd be a great concept for a film. He was bang on, and then he made like 6 more. On final thoughts, do you just have any final things you want to say about it? And I think we should probably give it a rating. I don't know what kind of rating system you want to do.
Let's go for a simple out of 10.
Out of 10, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So for me, I'd rate it in context, a 9 out of 10.
A 9 out of 10.
Yeah, it's just a great film. Simple as. I can't really point to anything about it specifically that's bad. It's kind of one of those films that you categorise as being lightning in a bottle. Someone has a great idea with the right cast and the right script, and shoves a genre forwards. I think very specifically.
I'd probably give it a 9 out of 10 as well, for the sole reason that there are things that kind of hinder it. Like, it is a run-of-the-mill slasher film, but obviously this was before those became cliches in the first place.
I think it's like, I'd categorise it almost like as the first really mainstream slasher film, probably. After Halloween. Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. So it started the cliches. And yeah, some of it's corny, but it's an 80s film, so it gets away with that. Yeah, exactly.
Whereas the next film we're going to talk about does not get away from that.
Oh boy.
Does not get away with that.
No.
And without further ado, let's move on to Texas Chainsaw from 2013. Set 39 years after the original, Heather Miller, a descendant from the Sawyer family, is told that she has inherited the Carter house from a grandmother she never knew she had. But there's a catch. The house already has a guest, Leatherface, our antagonist. Heather has to escape the clutches of Leatherface, all whilst trying to figure out where she comes from and discover the dark secret of her past.
Dun dun dun!
Whoa! Sounds like a reasonably great synopsis.
Yeah, it's an okay synopsis.
It sounds like it would make a great film. And without further ado, go for the Rotten Tomatoes scores.
Right, so what is the critic score for Texas Chainsaw?
Now, I didn't mind Texas Chainsaw. I thought it was a lot better than I anticipated.
Right.
But I've seen the IMDb score of this. I know it got like a 4.3 on IMDb. Okay. So, through that logic, critics, it was definitely rotten.
Mm-hmm. You are shockingly close. It got 19%. Yeah. What do you think the audience score was? Again, shockingly close, 40%.
There we go. Hey. Thank you very much.
Pretty good.
Thank you. Yeah.
Very good. The critics' consensus is, as an ugly and cynical attempt to rebrand Leatherface as a horror anti-hero, Texas Chainsaw is a bold move for the franchise.
Bold, yeah.
Which I think is a wonderfully cynical comment about the film.
Bold is one way to put it. Just thoughts, just initial thoughts from you to start.
Okay, so the script is garbage. The characters are terrible people. But that's what you expect in a horror film of this kind. Where the real meat of the film is how those people die. And unfortunately, I found that to be just a little underwhelming. I'm not gonna lie.
I agree. I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it.
Yeah.
Because there were a lot of deaths that made me and you go, oh!
Yeah.
Whoa! Like, for example, with the... and it went straight through him, cut him in half.
Yeah. That wasn't a bad kill. That wasn't a bad kill.
You can't deny that the first kill, we did not see that coming. He just turned back and Leatherface was there.
Yeah, that was a decent... To be fair, one thing I will give the film is it didn't rely on jump scares.
It didn't. And
that's like the one real jump scare in the whole film.
And one last sort of action sequence I want to point out is the when they're upside down in the car and Leatherface is going through the windows with the chainsaw.
That was a good sequence.
I thought that was really tense. I didn't know where that was going.
However, talking of the kills,
yes,
repeating the same character wanders down to the basement, following a trail of blood or gore or something like that, down to their doom, to then inevitably meet their doom, doesn't exactly instill terror in the viewer. However impressive the kill at the other end might be.
Yes. But what I'm thinking about, you know the police officer?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I thought when he went down to the basement, there was something different about it, because not only did he kill the girl by accident...
Oh no, that was such...
That was such
a buzzkill.
Oh, fuck! It was like that kind of moment. But it added a bit of a new dimension, because he had a gun. And it's like, okay, if anyone's going to stop Leatherface, it's him with the gun.
But it's not going to be him, though, is it? Because it's a Texas Chainsaw film.
We know how it works, but it does create a sort of... It's not just some normal defenseless person walking down. It's a police officer, and you're like, oh, maybe. But no, I remember watching it and getting to probably the end of the first act, and they had already encountered Leatherface. They had already had the majority of the people killed, and I'm thinking, where possibly could this film go?
Yeah, I know, exactly.
From here onwards. But then they had the dimension of the town itself being the antagonist, and Leatherface almost being sort of a misunderstood hero, almost.
So one of the things that about that whole situation of having the Sawyers versus the townsfolk is you're trying to justify some really shitty people against some even more shitty people, and the film trying to justify that, and you have that whole sequence with the main character in the looking through all the newspaper files and reading all this really charged language about massacre, of the Sawyers, and I'm just all the way through. I'm just kind of like, yes, but Leatherface just murdered all your friends.
Like, you don't know who you're rooting for.
No.
Because they're all horrific people. You don't want any of them to get out.
Yeah.
Oh, besides the police officer at the beginning.
Yeah, he's the one good guy in the whole film, really.
He's the one
morally okay guy in the entire film. But even then, he's not that interesting.
Also, he's barely in it.
I know, exactly.
And you can't really get invested with any of the characters when you don't want any of them to survive in the first place.
Precisely. And the whole thing leads up to one of what I think is one of the worst lines in any film I've ever seen. Chucking Leatherface the chainsaw and saying, "Do you think, cuz?" Oh my...
Go get him, cuz.
God.
Yeah. Yes, I know exactly where that was going. Do you know what sucks about Texas Chainsaw?
Go.
The best bit of it is when there was the Saw cameo, like the little Saw Easter egg.
Yeah,
that is the best bit of it.
Pig man, yeah.
When you see the pig mask and he's got the robe on from the Saw franchise, and that was the most interesting bit of the whole film.
Which
when I saw Jigs,
which is really telling.
Just final thoughts and a rating for Texas Chainsaw.
3 out of 10. I don't think I need to justify that.
3 out of 10. I think I enjoyed it. I'd give it a 5. I enjoyed it.
Okay.
I had good fun. It was terrible, but I enjoyed it. I think it was fun. The gore was good for a horror film. They had an interesting twist on quite a done to death concept.
Yeah.
And
I can see that.
I went on that. And going on from a concept that has been frankly done to death to now a very refreshing and new take on the horror genre. Let's go on to something that I really want to talk about, Green Room.
Careful now.
This will be over soon, gentlemen.
They're coming.
So set in 2015, a group of punk rockers book a gig at an extreme alt-right club. After witnessing a murder that they weren't meant to see, the band members are locked up backstage and with nowhere to go. Do they stay inside and trust that the owners want to keep them safe until they can be released, or do they fight their way through the violent thugs waiting outside? Do you want to take it over with the Rotten Tomatoes scores?
Absolutely. So, what do you think the critic score for this film is?
The critic score is going to be high. It's not going to be as high as Nightmare, but it's going to be high. I'd say... No, I've changed my mind. I've changed my mind.
Saying interesting.
Based off your...
Leads you on.
98.
You slightly overdone it there. That's 91%, the critic score.
Okay. Do you know what sucks? My first guess was going to be 89.
Really?
God damn it. Yeah, it was. And then you said interesting. I was like, oh, God, okay. And then audience score... 83.
75%.
That is insultingly low.
Why do you think that might be? Why do you think there's that disparity?
Because it's an A24 film and it's artsy.
Okay.
So critics are going to love it and audience members might not vibe with it.
Potentially. So what I'll say about the the audience score is that it's quite a slow build, and then the film in tone is quite brutal. It's not your typical kind of horror film or thriller in that it doesn't hold your hand, and when the violence happens, it's in quick, short, sharp bursts. And I mean, the look on your face at a couple of occasions was...
If you're talking about how just
it paints the full picture.
And kind of scary the film is, Patrick Stewart, when he... No, this, you're going to want to hear this. When he'd read the script...
Oh my God, yes.
He was so shaken that he locked all of his doors, turned his entire security system on.
Really?
And just sat with, like, I think a glass of whiskey, because he was so, like, scared. And I think that's incredible for just the script to do that. Because
Yeah.
I've been meaning to watch Green Room for ages. I never got around to it because it isn't anywhere. You had to go out and buy the Blu-ray from HMV. Other DVD shops are available, but you had to go and buy the Blu-ray, didn't you? And I am so glad I've seen it, because that was something that was completely missed off my watch list. The acting, although more or less, besides Patrick Stewart, unknowns.
Apart from Anton Yelchin as well.
Apart from Alton Yelchin, yeah. But perfectly cast.
Absolutely.
And I think for a film to be that perfectly cast, but all of the actors in there are relatively unknowns, that is incredible.
Yeah, it's incredible casting.
Yeah. I think the film is, judging by what I've heard about production stories, it's one of those scripts where even if things go wrong on production, the film's going to end up being quite great. Because the director, who, forgive me, I don't remember the name of, on the first day was doing like insert shots and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And he felt so bad because he had a great actor like Patrick Stewart just sitting there, not doing anything, that he had to be on set. And the director felt so bad, and the next day he apologised. He was like, "I'm so sorry that an actor as great as you was just sitting around all day."
So, one of the things I really love about the film is how just simple the setup is. Although the first half an hour or so, the film is quite slow in terms of setup. The setup is incredibly simple, which you explained in the synopsis. And the jumping off point from there, I think, is people making dumb, realistic decisions. In that every time that you see one of the characters get killed in whatever horrific way they are killed, whether it be doggy or knifing or whatever other way, you can see some kind of mistake they made. They made a decision which got them into the spot.
They made the wrong decision.
That they died.
Even
it's like,
Patrick Stewart, who seems like the smartest character on screen, makes one mistake. And then...
But there's one instance where a character has a shotgun and a dog's running at them and they miss their shot. That one shot, and they missed it. And that's just one of the things that I just really love the tone of the film.
The tone's incredible. Well, it's A24, so I think the tone's always going to be very stylistic.
I mean, they're a studio which,
very consistent,
for me, has just become synonymous with great original filmmaking.
Yeah, I agree. And it managed to do suspense really well.
Oh, yeah.
When Patrick Stewart is talking to the band, and you can only hear his voice, you can't see him.
No, that's right.
But I was reading up on this. The reason they did that is because they didn't want Patrick Stewart's star power to dominate the scene.
Right, yes.
They wanted it to focus on the characters and the writing.
I was kind of shocked that he would take that kind of role, particularly because his character Darcy is one where he arrives initially and it's kind of like, okay, he's the owner of this neo-Nazi bar, okay, it's kind of like, but you know, it might not be that bad. And as you start peeling back the layers of his character, particularly the particular line of dialogue near the end of the film, which shall not be said out loud, it really just gets down to the core of what kind of person he really is.
Well, that's the thing. even though literally 90% of the cast are playing Nazis, they don't use gratuitously offensive language.
No.
They're actually, and this is something that's quite interesting, they are pictured as being quite polite and quite accommodating. Yeah, but like Mark Webber's character and even Patrick Stewart's character at times, they're just like polite. It's interesting because they haven't made the Nazis like evil, like good against evil.
They haven't caricatured them.
Yes, which I think
is the key thing.
Which I think is one of the strengths of the whole film, and it sucks how it took me so long to actually watch it, because we were making a commentary for all these 3 videos, and Nightmare on Elm Street, we were saying things, Texas Chainsaw, we were just like talking through it, and just Green Room, we were silent.
And we're not silent, apart from the other.
And we're not even going to use Green Room because we don't have enough to say because we were just so silent and enthralled we were watching it.
Absolutely.
So do you want to go on to your final thoughts and ratings?
Absolutely. So final thoughts. I saw this film first when I was 15 years old. I caught it on Film 4, I think it was, having heard very good things about it. And honestly, it's the kind of film I love to death, in that it's creative freedom, I guess. It's just a really great original film. It's less than an hour and a half long. The pacing is very tight. The performances are all excellent. If you're a fan of vicious and brutal violence, you will love this. But apart from that, I think my final rating for it is a 9 out of 10.
I'm gonna go one step further. I'm gonna give it a full 10. I would give it a perfect score because it's perfect. I mean, it's not for everyone, but it excels at what it does. It is incredibly successful at what it does. So that's all 3 films: Nightmare on Elm Street, Texas Chainsaw, and Green Room. We had so much fun watching them. We hope you had fun listening to us just talk absolute rubbish about them for half an hour. And without further ado, I've been James.
I've been Adam, and this has been Back to the Feature.